Hey gamers! So today Chris isn't here. Today it's Treantmonk because it's come at last. We are finally going to cover wizards. Now it's been half a year since I've started this channel, and a lot of you are probably thinking, finally! Now obviously when it comes to wizards, I want to get it right. I mean, I've always claimed wizards are my specialty. I've created a guide for wizards that I don't want to just rehash in this video series. So what I want to do here is we're actually going to create a kind of a lengthy series where we are going to deep dive into wizards. We're going to look into wizards like nobody has ever done before. Now, because this is going to be a lengthy series, I have a specific format we're going to follow that's going to allow us to have this in a playlist. And I'm going to create a special playlist, Treantmonk's Guide to Wizards, that's going to be on my channel so that you can come back later and reference the video you need. Now, this video today, we're really just talking about an introduction. We're going to explain why I think wizards are great, why I recommend them for play, and exactly what we're going to go over in this series. So, welcome to Treantmonk's Guide to Wizards.
Behold the wizard, beware his powers, unspeakable powers.
So why do I recommend wizards to players? Well, there's a number of different reasons. The first is versatility. Unlike any other class, wizards can fill just a multitude of roles. What can go up front and avoid hits as well as the Blade Singer? What can do area of effect damage better than the Evoker? I mean, they can cast a fireball at their feet and hit all the enemies and none of their allies. No class can debuff enemies like a wizard, or buff allies, or bring allies out of dangerous situations, or an ally that's close to going down in combat, saving them. And utility, nobody covers it like the wizard does. Comprehending languages, detecting magic, identifying magic items, protecting your campsite, telekinesis, all these without even using spell slots. The second reason is defense. Nobody does defense like the wizards, and this is counterintuitive because wizards have bad hit points and they can't wear armor, so they seems like they should be really weak on defense, and in previous editions they often were. There's a reason why wizards always hung at the back of the party, because they were the easiest ones to take down. Not anymore. Wizards are very good at defense as long as they take precautions. They can get an armor class as good as the fighter or even better. And if they're targeted with enemy spells, they can counterspell them. Or magical effects, they can dispel them. They can get out of dangerous situations with teleports or misty steps. Just all these things added together give the wizard the ability to defend themselves unlike any other class in the game. And what about just the number of spells they can cast? Yes, they use the same list as everybody else, but with Arcane Recovery, they gain the ability to gain spells back. The wizard can cast just a ton of spells. Land druids are in the same league. Sorcerers, if they give up their sorcery points, can be in the same league. But of course, a sorcerer who gives up their sorcery points is a far inferior caster. And let's talk about just the value of spell preparation. There's only a few classes in the game that can actually change which spells they've prepared. Druids can, clerics can, and wizards can. But unlike druids and clerics, wizards don't even need to prepare their ritual spells. They can cast all their ritual spells without ever preparing them, plus prepare a good number of spells off their spellbook, whatever they like for the situation they need. That gives them, again, that adds to that versatility, and it makes them better spellcasters. And let's talk about the spells themselves, the best spells in the game. There is no spell list in this game that compares, even close, to what the wizards can bring to the table. And it starts right away at first level with Find Familiar. And it moves on to Wall of Force, and Contingency, and Simulacrum. These are spells that no other class can cast like the wizard. And I often get told, well, bards could take those spells. Yes, bards can take a couple spells with magical secrets, but in almost every case, they're going to get them at a later level than the wizard, and they can barely scratch the surface of the multitude of spells that the wizard has that the bard wants. No bard, even a lore master, can come close to the number of fantastic spells that the wizard has access to. Now, considering how good their spellcasting is and how good their spells are, you would think that maybe the subclasses would be lackluster, but they aren't. We have subclasses that can assign die rolls to enemies and allies. We have subclasses that have huge bonuses to initiative and saving throws. We have others that have massive armor class bonuses and concentration save bonuses. Others that can permanently disable an enemy, giving them only one saving throw. So even when it comes to subclasses that can create something out of nothing and teleport for free and cast an entire school of magic without concentration saves, we look at that subclass and we go, it's okay. That's how good the subclasses are. But I have to be honest, I've always loved wizards. I've loved wizards before there was D&D. So this isn't just about mechanics. For me, this is largely about wizards in general and what they are. I mean, when I enjoy fantasy fiction, it tends to be the wizard character that really speaks to me. And it starts right off with Lord of the Rings and Gandalf, and there are Lord of the Rings fans out there who are going to say, oh, but Gandalf's not a real wizard because he's one of the Maiar, and the Maiar then took the form of humans and became the Seven Astari, and so therefore that's where his power comes from. And I say, bull. I am a Lord of the Rings fan. If the Lord of the Rings fans want to get with me and talk about whether Balrogs have wings, spoiler, I don't think Tolkien intended for them to, then we can do that. But here's what Gandalf does. Gandalf is an advisor, and he's an advisor through knowledge that he's gained through study. We know he actually studies. We can see his history of Faramir, and we know that this is how he gains his power, through knowledge, and knowledge that he shares with the party through support. If that's not a wizard, what is? And it goes on from there. Who's the best character in the King Arthur series? Well, it's Merlin. What about modern fantasy fiction? It's Harry Dresden. In comedy fantasy, it's Skeeve through the Myth series. What about comic books? Doctor Strange, Zatanna. Kids fiction? Harry Potter. What about myth? Well, there's Baba Yaga, and I'm a Finn, so Louhi. Science fiction, Yoda and the Emperor. And this barely scratches the surface. Did anyone else watch cartoons as a kid and hope for Gargamel against the Smurfs? I did. And what was my favorite movie as a kid? It was Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins really is a wizard. And who watched movies like The Mummy and didn't think that Imhotep stole the show? Overall, and again, I'm just barely scratching the surface. The most interesting characters in fiction to me are all wizards. But it goes beyond that for me. For me, I grew up a nerd. I was not athletic. I was not coordinated. I was not particularly good with other people and social situations. And when I look at D&D today, what do I see? I see classes that are based on their physical ability, like a fighter or a barbarian, or their coordination, like a rogue. Or maybe they get magic, but they get their magic through their faith, like a cleric, or their connection to the land, like a druid. Or maybe they have it through their force of personality, like a bard. Or maybe they have it through a pact, like a warlock, or maybe they have it through their heritage, like a sorcerer. There's only one class that gets their power through knowledge, through intelligence, through learning. That's the wizard. They don't need to be athletic or coordinated. They don't need to have force of personality. It's all about intelligence. That's why the wizard has always spoken to me and probably always will speak to me, regardless of whether they're the most powerful class in the game or not. The fact that they are the most powerful class in the game is just a bonus. So let's get into what you can expect in this series. So after today's video, I'm going to be releasing one video per week for several weeks. Next week, we're going to go over the subclasses of the wizard, and I'm going to talk about how tactics change, and we're going to really look at those abilities closely and how they can be used, how they interact with different spells to a degree that I haven't done in the past. The following week, we're going to talk about roles that wizards can fill and how they can fill them, what kind of spells they can use, and how different subclasses fit into those different roles. In the following week, we're going to talk about races, and one thing I find with wizard races is unlike any other class, wizards maybe rely on their primary ability score less. And I'm going to discuss why and what races really work well for a wizard and which ones are okay. Then for the next 3 weeks, we're going to go into tactics, deep dive into tactics. The first week, we're going to talk about low-level wizards. This is often something that people struggle with. A low-level wizard. I find a low-level wizard to be very useful. So we're going to discuss how to make a useful low-level wizard, what kind of things you can do to aid in combat, outside of combat, and how to build that character. The next week, we're going to talk about levels where people tend to be more comfortable with wizards, the mid-levels. And we're going to talk about how those mid-level spells and the change in number of spell slots will change our tactics in combat and our role in combat. And then the following week, we're going to talk about high-level wizards. And then we're really going to start metagaming. We're going to be talking about the high-level, super powerful game-breaking stuff that wizards can bring to the table at those levels. Then we're going to do 9 weeks of wizard spell evaluation, 1 video per level of spells. And we're going to, when we look at these spells, we're not just going to determine are they good or are they bad. We're going to talk about how they interact with different subclasses, which subclasses are going to get more from them, less from them, which ones are great overall, and which ones maybe you should avoid. And finally, we're going to get into the builds, and we're going to start doing builds for every single subclass of wizard. I'm going to start with the Blade Singer, go to the Diviner, and go from there. So that's what's coming up on Treantmonk's Guide to Wizards. I hope you'll join me. We're going to do it every week. So until next time, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to relax. And I'm going to have some fun, because D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everyone. And I will see you next week.